Hi there. Today I'm going to show you a little trick on the Digitakt that's very useful for improvisation. So if you are a Digitakt user, then you probably know that pressing and holding the page button here can engage fills. So that's very useful because you can program in variations with the conditional triggers. Here you can have, let me see, if you select a trigger, that is, you can have all these different conditions where a trigger will play or not. And one of them is fill and the other is not play while fill. That's fill with a little line above it. So that's very useful. And actually, how do I go to none? That's interesting. Probably the easiest way to say none is... it still says. Okay, so yeah, that's the way you can program in fills. But one thing that I want to do in the live set, which I'm working on, is have the fill be actually a high pass on the kick and the bass for typical DJ style high pass filtering, taking out the energy and then bringing it back in again. So one thing I could do is for each pattern program an alternative version where with, well, don't even need parameter locks, but where you can, where I can have a high pass on the filter and the sub bass, or either leave the sub bass out or have it filtered. But that means that I will have to make twice as many patterns. That's not a problem making the patterns, because you can just copy them and then adjust to get the high pass sound. But it does mean that I used to two times as many patterns in the project. And the project has 128 patterns, 8 banks of 16, which sounds like a lot. But for a live set, I mean, maybe it gets so big one day that I want to have 128 different patterns on hand. And then I could save space by having the high pass loop pattern be the same as the original one, and engaging it by using the fill button. So another way you can engage it is, of course, by the Control-Alt function, where, well, let's just play this pattern here, which I made. So if I go to the filter page and I say, I press track, so now I'm in Control-Alt mode, and I can set it to a high pass. But now you can hear that the problem is that, of course, all the other sounds, the filter also changes, and some of these sounds are really dependent on having a low pass filter. So that's why Control-Alt in a lot of cases won't work for what I want to do, and also for this one. So, but I found this other trick. I don't remember finding it where I found it, because I actually found it before I owned the Digitakt. I was looking at videos of how to use the Digitakt, and there's this trick, because Control is great, but some of the other Elektron boxes have some few more options. The Octatrack has the famous slider, and the analog rhythm has scenes, which I found very complicated when I owned one. So anyway, without further ado, here is my little workaround. So if you go to the kick track, I have these engaged, 4 to the floor, pretty basic stuff. And what I'll do first is I will go into the trick menu and have these not play when fill is engaged. So when I press page for fill, gone. Okay. That's fine. Now I have no kick. That could also be a viable alternative, right? But we want to have a high pass kick. So the way I found doing this is making a trick here, putting it here, and then conditional only when the fill plays. Okay, great. But now there's a kick, but it's in the wrong place. And the way to solve that is to move it back with the micro timing, with the arrows here, the maximum. And what that will do is it'll pretty much almost coincide with the moment when the kick triggers. And I'll play it for you later on. It's not really a big change. I don't really hear the difference. Okay, so the high pass then. So on the filter page, I will engage this trig again and set filter to high pass. And I've noticed that around between 60 and 70 is like a good spot for the high pass kick sound. And I'll just copy this trig. So press it, function, copy, and then paste, paste, paste. And now just to be sure on the trick menu, yeah, these are all there when the fill, and just to be sure the timing, yeah. So now when I press page for fill during playback, we should hear the high pass kick and not the low one. Yeah, I'll make it a little bit more obvious because the sub bass is still running, of course. So with just the kick, now what we can do is perhaps make it a little bit more high passed. Let's say 70 or so. Add a little bit of resonance for some punch. Copy, paste, paste, paste. Yeah. Okay, now let's do the same with the bass. Okay, so track 2. Here we run into a problem because I've programmed this 16th note pattern, but now I don't have any steps left to create the extra trigs that'll play when the fill is engaged. So one way to solve this would be, and this would probably only work with very simple patterns, would be in the trick menu to make this a retrig, quarter note length, 16th notes, and that means this one note will play 4 times within this quarter note with the first 4 steps. Okay, let's see if that works as intended. Paste, paste, paste. So now, yeah, we hear the 4 notes playing, but it's only the one. Okay, so now let's make it conditional. So in the trick menu, not playing when the fill is engaged. So fill with the line above it. Let's check it. Yeah, you can't hear it anymore. But we want to have the high pass version of this. Leaving it out is fine, and actually it could probably work with this bass because it's basically only a sub. So when we do the high pass, maybe it disappears completely. But let's try to do it anyway. So still on this track, let's add a trick here. And in the trick menu, now the length, it could be 3. That is 3/16. Retrig on. We could also make it longer. It doesn't really matter because actually then we wouldn't have to move the other ones back. But let's just keep it at this. Okay. So yes. Filter. High pass 70. Hopefully we'll still hear something. The sound was low passed and now it's high passed, so that'll reveal some extra frequencies, hopefully. Okay, so copy, paste, paste, paste. And let's just mute the kick. And one thing I forgot is I forgot to move them back. So all the way back until they more or less coincide with the actual first node of the pattern. So this is a neat little trick which is made possible by the micro timing feature. And that also means that I did it wrong on the trick page. Not on the trick page, on the menu here. Let's just make it a quarter. Okay, and again I will copy this. Once you get used to this copying and pasting Elektron workflow, it's actually great. And one thing I also did wrong is they're playing all the time now, but of course they only need to play when the fill is engaged. Yeah, so now we have the regular one, pressing the fill. Doesn't sound great because it has a very short sort of attack. We can change that, of course, also. And now the unfortunate thing is that there is no bandpass. Actually, there's already quite a long attack. A bandpass would be great because these nodes with the fill engaged have a lot more high frequency content. It would be great if we could filter that down. One thing we can try is maybe reduce the overdrive. Yeah, and let me just copy those. Maybe a bit better. Let's see how it sounds with the kick. Also interesting is that now it seems to wait for a bit. How is that happening? Now it works fine. Okay, together with the rest then. So there you have it. I don't really hear a difference in the timing when I engage a fill. I think it's the difference in between actually being on the first step or being on the second, but completely moved backwards with the micro timing sounds the same. I don't think there's really like a discontinuity in the groove or anything. So sounds good to me, and I thought this was just like a neat little trick that I would share with you. Hope you enjoyed it, found it useful. If so, please press like on the video on YouTube. If you want to talk about this, let me know, comment. I really appreciate comments. I will answer if you have any suggestions or, I don't know, just want to talk. So that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. See you on the next one. Bye bye.